What's up, guys? We are back streaming on GG after a bit of time not streaming. I think it's been a while. We have been playing some more live cash and some tournament stuff as well, so I haven't been streaming too much, but getting back into it over the next couple of days, so you should see a good amount coming out here with just the bare middle set here, just going to call with the flush blocker and casually turn quads in our first hand. Won't really have any leads here on a middle board pairing card, given that we don't have the polarity advantage. The question is, do we want to raise here ever? We will get the stacks in, obviously, against kings. I think just flatting here against bluffs is good. And makes it more likely now that he does have a value hand or a bluff, given that the 4 spade rolls off. So I think that we just want to check and either induce value or a bluff, and obviously be shoving. And we do not. And kind of interesting. Might have expected a value bet there with a nut flush and a blocker, but unfortunately not. Sorry, that was a little hectic for the intro. Yeah, as I said, being playing some live cash and tournaments. I kind of stopped streaming on the tournaments as much. It's just a little harder in terms of having like the constant action. That's good for a live stream. But we did pretty decently on Coin Poker. We cashed in the 1K, and we actually came fourth in the 200 the other day. So a nice little scoop in addition to the bankroll. So yeah, back to playing some 100 on GG. We have a Russian cash table on the right and then a reg table on the left, so we can talk about the different dynamics there. King high board here, two-tone, just checking range after being cold call by 2 pretty strong cold call ranges that smash this board. And obviously just check folding. So we can talk about some differences that we will see between Russian cash and the reg tables. Looks like we have, I mean, I think this is a relatively new table, so I don't know that a lot of these stats are developed well enough yet, but still nice to see some, you know, over half stack, not full stack, 75, 67 VPIPers here. On this board, you know, given that this guy cold called and then called a 3-bet, he shouldn't interact too well with this. Obviously, we'll run into overparent flush draws here a good amount of the time, but with the 7 and 9 blocker, I think we have too much fold equity, and we have more than enough equity to stack off with the backdoor flush draw and 2 pair trip outs. So not really a hand that we want to slow play at all there. We do not want to induce any action. Justin, welcome to the chat, my friend. I appreciate that as always. Glad to be back here streaming. This guy, our hand doesn't play great multi-way, so we could actually 4-bet this. But I do also want to play pots with this guy, and this is what I mean on this type of board. It looks like we have a very strong hand, and we don't have a bad hand, but obviously we can be completely dominated here 3-way. I think we do have to peel one. And then I guess just check folding turn to a large sizing. Not blocking a heart. And blocking a ton of the draws. I mean, we do have the jack blocker. Against this sizing though. We could honestly jam. Like this is often like weakness. And we do have like such a marginal hand. But given that we block the 2 pairs and we have equity, now we do get called, unfortunately. And by pair queen jack, interesting. But we do obviously have 30% equity. Bink the first and the second. Welcome back, welcome back. We love it. I mean, it's a questionable bet on the flop into 3 people and then half pot size turn bet. That's what I mean when you see that sort of bet on a dynamic turn. It's just often like such a marginal hand. And like potentially if we were deeper it makes it a better play because he might have more fold equity, but I guess he really didn't feel like folding the bet top 2 there. You can make an argument for slow playing here with the straight blockers, but this guy's so short, there's enough draws out there that we can just kind of like get the money in the flop. He's never folding a flush draw. And I think just gonna flat. I think with 1 suit we can 3-bet, but rainbow is probably more like a flat. And usually I would raise this in these sort of tighter games, but with the short stack and the small blind, it gets kind of ugly. This is actually not a bad hand with a club blocker to go ahead and raise. Like, it's too strong to fold. And we have some pretty, we have 4 outs to basically the nuts. And, you know, he's going to stab a lot at those Broadway low card boards, more than he should. And, you know, he's got a pretty tight continuing range there. Okay. And against this relatively wide range for Russian cash, I will be 3-betting here. Imposition deep means that we're going to get to 3-bet a ton more. On this particular board, I don't mind checking back. You know, we are going to run into King a good amount of the time here with our particular blockers, and we can just turn the effective nuts as well. We want to get check raised by kings. Also get some protection from diamond draws. So I'm going to use a half pot sizing here, which I think is relatively standard on a straining turn. This is probably pretty marginal, especially like when this guy has us covered. We just have to fold so many flops. So a little bit of oversight there with that guy being so deep. So looks like I missed what happened, but our friendly 75% VPIPper is I don't ideally want to play this out of position because this guy's going to overcall a ton, but against this person's range, I don't think we can fold this hand. Maybe it should be a 3-bet, to be honest. I mean, I very much just don't believe this, but with 2 players behind, I mean, this guy's reconnecting, I guess. There's not too much we can do. But yeah, I guess this guy won a reasonable pot over here. Probably just gonna get called too much here with this hand to try and steal against a wide big blind. And even a hand like this, usually I would raise, but with short stack 56 VPIP and the small blind being so wide, I think we can just get rid of it. Here we can definitely open wider with, you know, more of an average button and then tire big blind. Is anyone in the chat heading to the World Series? Any events over there? I will be there in probably a month or so. There's some of the tournaments and the cash games that come along with it, and guy jams on the flop, and this guy's chipping up. So, I mean, kind of a gross spot, but it's gonna be an SPR of 2. We are deep with the guy behind. Okay. Now, obviously, we're just calling it off, but never in fantastic shape. So we're behind with 63% equity. And we still have 67% equity behind a pair on the turn. It's quite funny. And we do hit. So ship it. Hopefully we can get some interesting deep spots, potentially. This hand is like quite debatable with this guy being so wide behind. It's a little too weak to 3-bet an ISO, but at the same time, doesn't play well multi-way. Ideally, we could get some hands on the left and try and get a little deeper here with this character. This obviously hits the cold call range of the small blind decently, but this guy is quite wide. We don't really have any equity here. Not that many blockers. But it's pretty hard to continue on that board out of position. And with no diamond or pair blocker here, just going to check back. There are definitely some turns that we can bluff, and where we have some very marginal equity. And yeah, with no flush blocker, and again, picking up some additional straight equity that could be good at this point. Just want to check back. Problem with betting here is that we don't represent much, given that a lot of our diamond draws that would want to bet here in terms of like 10 high plus would have likely a hand that they wanted to bet on the flop or turn. So obviously we lose most of the time here, but and this is obviously not GTR, but just kind of a good spot here to try and play against this guy in position. Hopefully we don't get ISO'd. And probably should have seen that this guy is 20 BB deep behind, which may have changed the decision, but here we go. Pretty rough spot given that we block sets we can dominate and block our own outs and none of the straight draws. So I think we would just hold the turn to any reasonable bet. I mean, I really want to call. I do really want to call. We don't have a heart. We have a pretty bad hand for it. We kind of block the one card straight, which I don't know if he would shove here anyway. Maybe he does have some hearts that he checks back. Yeah, this is just like very ambitious. Yeah, definitely wanted it though. So we will have to obviously be more careful our position on these types of boards. With the overpair and backdoor wrap and backdoor flush draw, good amount of equity that we don't want to bet fold against the pot size bet. Very interesting. I don't think that we can ever fold here. And obviously, terrible card for our hand. Pretty bad for our range. And we continue with the bad runouts. The question is, do we get him to fold a hand like Jack 6? And gonna lead here on the left, given that it is a top card pairing. That does give us some leads, and we don't want 8-9 checking back here. I mean, all of his kind of semi-bluffs get there. And then just potting the river. A lot of his straights will have a pair blocker here, so he can definitely find some hero calls, given that we only rep boards at this point. And with a marginal draw, like often do want to check back, but with the 2 9s here, like less outs to improve. And blocking some of the lower inside straight draws as well. Obviously calling a 3-bet here on the left. Pot size bet. I was actually going to raise. And here I think with the 2 9s, 2 pair, and flush draw. We are going to go ahead and pot. Have to fold here on the left. I would have raised a smaller sizing. Given that we block his best hands on this board, which are aces, kings with hearts. So this is very, very strange. But I think you need some very good reasoning to continue against pot size bets in that situation. Against potentially recreational, unknown yet. Given that they're just going to have so many strong hands. And very, very few pot size bluffs there. I think on the right, pretty standard check call. Won't really have too many bets on this soft queen high board. And then on the left, no reason to check. We block the hands that we would get value from, and you know, we have like marginal draw and good showdown value. Probably want a queen or a 10 here if we were going to check raise. And we'll just fold to a bet on the left, given that we block all the draws from the flop that could miss, and we were cruised. And good hand to check call there on the right. Especially with the 3. We block some of the hands that he'll bet the flop with and continue on the turn, and his top 2 hands are usually going to double barrel. And again, hard for him to make a straight on that river without an ace. And we have 2 of them. I mean, I don't know what this guy's stack size is. Is this like a GG glitch? Like, what? You're obviously not folding, but I might just want to jam. What the hell? Like a cheat code. I just can't know the SPR. Blocking top pair. I'm actually just going to check this one back. We have to avoid... Obviously less outs can call more rivers, but also we skew more of his range towards a flush. And I'm blocking the ace of clubs. You know, we make it more likely that he'll go for a stab on the river. Yeah, no blockers here, and some backdoor equity. Pretty standard check back. Against this stack size, about like 2 big blinds. See what happens. You're just gonna play so straightforward here that it's just like a very valuable bet, or a very positive EV bet that he likely just never has a bluff. This is kind of tilting. And definitely going to be squeezing with these double suited kings. Hand obviously plays much better at a low SPR. And obviously, I think we're just going to pot here. I think we get jammed on a good amount of the time with any sort of ace-x hands. And on a coordinated board like this, our sizing is going to be large. Maybe a little different given that we're that deep. But hand definitely not strong enough to want to slow play there. Pretty standard check back on the left, with no blockers and a good amount of equity, especially with the backdoor flush draw. Pretty bad river. We kind of block some of the hands that we want him to fold in terms of overpairs, so I don't think it's a spot that we want to turn this hand into a bluff. Chop it up. Obviously we don't have leads on this board from a GTO standpoint, but when someone's playing this wide and we look at their cold call percentage, it's more like kind of playing small blind versus big blind here, and this is a board that I will have a lot of bets on, and our particular hand makes a decent one. Pretty big flop here for us. Obviously no real leads on an A-side board. I bet large. I still don't think that we can slow play this hand. We have good equity on the flop against most things, but any kind of turn card over a 9 is not great. So I think we just want to rip out of position. If we had some better overcards there, I think you can make an argument for just calling. And don't mind betting half pot here. Obviously easy fold to a raise, and we do have some nut equity. We do need protection against random overcards when we check back. Gonna be tough for the small blind and for MP to interact well with this board. We just have so many checks in the sandwich here, and once we get another caller, even though it's a small size, I think we can just let this one go. Feels tough though to the third pot size bet. And to basically a min raise, I think we are going to overcall here in the small blind. You could argue for some leads here, maybe with a higher flush blocker. If we had the ace of hearts, I'd be more inclined against 4 people. It's one of those hands that it's kind of gross to check call, but it has a lot of EV, and with those types of hands you often do want to lead, especially when the board favors your range significantly, which obviously this king jack board does out of the small blind. Problem is these ranges are both pretty uncapped. This feels like a very nitty fold. Very nitty fold. As I said, if I had the ace of hearts, I would... Well, then I wouldn't have the backdoor nut flush draw. But if I had like the queen of hearts or something, and I was blocking more of like the check ripping raise range, I would either look to lead more or call And we do have to check a lot on a top pairing card because a lot of our Jack X we're going to check call versus lead. Especially blocking the 5s here. Don't want to go ahead and bet. We do have equity. Given that our straight draw is likely live, as there's not too many board combinations here, but probably not enough to continue. Flop pretty well on the right. and a hand that we definitely want to start building a pot with and try and get multiple callers. You could even argue for an even smaller sizing here. And we get jammed on. Oh, is he not folding? Even though we're quite deep with him, we can just call, and if the money goes in three-way, we're completely fine with that. And we river the nut straight with our spade blocker. I mean, after checking back twice, I expect him to bet a ton here. Oh, he just run into a low flush, but yeah. Yeah, can't fold to that sizing. And now the question is, like, how do we value down ace, queen, or queens? Like, what sizing? Is he gonna call? We actually get a nice heads up game on the left here. Not a bad hand to 3-bet. And we do get called by ace queen. And board on the left. Pretty deep. There's just not many fun runouts. I guess we do have the backdoor flush draw and gut shot too. I don't love it. It's kind of run out of time there. I think probably want to bet. Even though we're heads up, I expect this guy to be playing pretty much a 6 max off 3-bet range. So he's gonna have a lot of overpairs here. And the question is, do we bet for value? Hey, Commodore, that I actually do appreciate the comment, because I've actually basically been looking at that, because yeah, it's probably kind of annoying to watch, I would imagine. On the right, in position against this sizing, I mean, we can't fold. Oh, didn't realize we were 3-way. That's not ideal. Yeah, definitely will be investing in a green screen soon. This is just the OBX filter without any background stuff. So, yeah. And on the right, we're very deep with this guy behind us. He blocks some of the hearts. King Jack is definitely checking there. I would really hate to get check raised on this river. I mean, or just generally raised. And we do suck out nicely. What is up, LPD? Yeah, it's been probably more than a couple of weeks, to be honest. Do we have a call here? Bets into 2. It's kind of a little strong. I'm actually just gonna fold. But we do block all of the showdown value. And do we want to 4-bet this end? probably in reg games it's not bad. But we can play at a really high SPR in position, so I don't mind just calling. Our hand plays fine, multi-way. And taking a stab with a kind of blocker heads up on the left. And we'll just be giving up on the 9. Man, I guess we have to fold. Kinda sucks. I'm drawing pretty thin. No real leading range at opposition. But on blank turns, we'll be using usually a pot sizing. And we river the nuts. Bunch of draws do brick, but I'm gonna go for getting called lighter than expect him to turn a hand like this into a bluff, and I'll just check it back. So I think when in doubt, going for the bet is the better option. OPD, I feel like every time I check in with you, you've either switched what game you're playing or self-excluded or something like that. That sounds pretty rough. Playing in the 5-card streets, yeah, you're gonna run into some even more fun variants there. But this is a safe space, so feel free to share all of your horrific bad beats, and we can all share in your misery, as we've all been there. This board is a bit lower. We have some more leads, but even this particular hand, not really the right type that we want to start leading with. On the turn, however, this board is still very dynamic, but I think I am going to probe here against usually weaker than should be check back ranges. I can't fold against half pot with the not gut shot. And don't want to turn this hand into a bluff. I mean, obviously we beat some spare draws that missed. Like 4-6, he's banging the turn. Like so. Basically. I do kind of want to call this, to be honest. And we do win. Didn't really make too much sense as to what he's going to check back the turn with and find value on the river, given that my range is pretty uncapped. I mean, I don't know if this guy's thinking about that, but his line didn't make much sense. So with a 6, weak diamonds, and a pair blocker, I'm actually going to go for the raise here and just raise fold this hand. It's too strong to fold, but does not play very well on like any turns. But there are a ton of turns that, or a good amount of turns that we can barrel if he just flats. And we obviously get the free card to realize some equity if we have any remaining. Given that he calls, I am going to check back. And might even fold this river, to be honest, if he leads. He just leads pot. I feel like it's just an underbluffed spot. If he has the king of diamonds, which is his major bluff there, you know, he often has some showdown value. So I don't think he turns that into a bluff. And when we block the 7, we do unblock an ace, but I don't think people are, you know, taking top and bottom pair with a diamond and turning that into a bluff. So I'm fine with just folding there. It's gonna connect decently with the big blind range, and we have some backdoor equity and, you know, top with overcards to the deuce. I think it's too strong to bluff. And again, no real value in bluffing here. Get some nice aces on the right. Standard squeeze. LPD, if you're at 3.25k from $25, you are pretty much due to have a horrific run, because you must have had the Jesus run. Being deep out of position, I think this is just a pretty standard check fold. Even though we do have some backdoor equity. I mean, can we fold this? I mean, it's just so tough. We get ourselves into so many tricky turns where we face like a massive turn bet. Take it down on the left with a hand that has some equity against a 7, but also blocks a ton of 7x. It's going to be raising out of the small blind, so a pretty nice spot to go for a raise in position there. Betting range on this flop pretty much, especially blocking an ace. I mean, we'll even get value from worse here, like ace queen, ace jack is not going to fold, given that I am betting range on this board. I basically only expect to ever get raised by ace 7, like 7x is just going to call. All right, we will be right back. Again, our hand is probably too strong. Bet here. It's a bet fold. The gut shot and backdoor flush draw. And the ability to turn the effect of nizzles. Just bets pot. Almost want to raise. No, I don't think that we can fold. But like, what are his bluffs? Like, what are his bluffs here? I wish I had some more time to think about that, but realistically, like, we have a bluff catcher, and what are his bluffs in that spot? Likely he has a pocket pair. Yes, we block the queens, but with his stack depth, he is going to be jamming any boat. Pretty bad turn. We obviously have a diamond blocker, which is nice in this spot. And so I don't mind actually just going for a 1/3 sizing. Like, if he was going to bet flushes on the turn, there are likely going to be some nut flush draw combinations. He's not going to check back too many middling flushes, and we block a middling flush, so I think we have the best hand a lot here, or chop. And we just have such a big disadvantage on this run out for our range that there's just no point really betting. I mean, shouldn't really be calling hands like this, but in position on this particular player, I think it is fine, even though we're going multi-way here. What is going on? And do we want to lead? Probably not. I don't know why I cannot click this play. I think the board's too dynamic forward to consider bluffing here, and if we're not bluffing, there's gonna be a ton of runouts that we can't bluff. We just have to give it up. Yeah, I mean, 20,000 hands is like, sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You can have some crazy good runs and some crazy bad runs in that spell, but long may it continue, LPD. I hope you you run that up some more when you're once you're not excluded anymore. Is King 10 6? I would probably bet this. I just don't think we have enough. And actually tempted to float and bet river. I guess we really have no equity though. I just feel like that is a line where people stab into or kind of probe turn far too much. And when they probe turn and check, they check river, they check fold at a ridiculous frequency. So when we block kind of the overpairs there, which we'll be able to represent with that line, it's sometimes, you know, a decent approach, but maybe we want a little more equity, like a gut shot or something like that. And given that this board is so disconnected and we block the nut flush too, I think I'm actually going to check it back. I think it's just very hard for him to find continues here. Maybe one more time. I mean, you know, we'll get called by Queen X now. Not really fold much to a min-res. And not folding the flop. Obviously. Potentially get ourselves into trouble on turns like this. And given that we block the showdown value and have a marginal hand, I do prefer to go for a check here, most likely. He might value bet a straight with a flush blocker once we check twice, which we can obviously snap call against. And we run into the nizzles. So saved ourselves some money. I mean, obviously, probably wouldn't have called it check raise anyway, but and decent candidate to raise. The question is, do we have too much equity? I would say probably not. And we'll be blasting off here. I mean, we are crazy deep, actually. Given that we block a pair and a diamond, though, it's not great. Given that we're this deep, he will have straights that he just flats. But that doesn't matter when you river the nuts. Okay. I mean, getting pretty good odds over here on 1BB. See if we can flop a straight flush. We do not. I guess he did have like 6-7. That's a nice pot. Guy doesn't 3-bet, so again we can potentially play. I was gonna say a pot very deep in position, and we're still gonna be playing very deep against this guy. Would hit to get check raised. And we don't have a spade, we block our run outs and don't block the straight, so there's a good chance that happens. I think unblocking spades and the straight we have to bet here. I think that would be overkill if we had like the flush draw too. I'm actually just gonna fold. I mean, against someone this tight, it's just always aces, and we're just in rough shape. And SPR level over 1. Obviously just shipping it. And he does just call, which is kind of fun. Oh, it's the jack of spades, though. So we still have to be careful on these boards, even though it is as high as the pre-flop raiser. Then we have the inside straight draw. Pick up an additional straight out. And definitely going to call a small sizing and then fold to a raise behind, given that we don't have any spades. And even though we don't have a club, blocking some of the lower straight draws and having just a pretty rough hand to continue with, I'm just going to bet here. We have a couple turns, like non-club turns, that we can barrel. And on the right, can't really rep much. I think just give up with 3 people in the pot. I mean, the reason to call would be players that are kind of involved here. But far away, we're just never going to be in a fun spot. We're just non-nut equity. We're just inviting to get ourselves squeezed when we flat here, but and don't really want to be check calling this hand, so we're just gonna bet fold. And pretty good turn, pretty decent board on the right. Could argue to continue bang here, and I think unblocking hearts and some of the showdown value and having a straight blocker, I think check calling is the play. And we run into a set. Wasn't expecting that with a check back on the turn, but I guess I like it, I think. I mean, that bet was very, very small. And to defend quite wide against that size, this is maybe a little too wide. I think we probably need another connected high card there when we have the trip suit. And usually when I pick up like weak aces like this, I'm often looking at the 3-bet percentages behind me. As they make a decent candidate, especially when a little deeper, to just flat and look to back rows. And we flop pretty well. No reason to really check back here. And realistically, a turn that we're not really going to struggle on too much. We're not going to run into 4-5 that much. But when we pot it, it looks quite strange, because again, we shouldn't have 4-5. And now the question is, do we get called by worse? And I think now there's a lot more possible strats that he can have in his range, like 8, 9, 10 from the flop, so I think we do want to check at this point. And okay, nice hand on the right table. Unfortunately, we are crazy deep with a couple people at this table. Luckily, they fold. And we'll take down some free big blinds for sure. So I guess he has the wrap and diamonds, but I mean, so it's only 7 hands. Never really slow playing aces. Not great that we block a king. We end up just running into aces a ton. And we'll just often be like flipping our slight underdog on this board. You'll get it in pretty well. And that is a pretty unfortunate turn. Again, this guy's pretty wide, so probably a wider calling range than he should have. So a hand like this, I'm actually more inclined to bet. Obviously, I'm never betting there against the reg. It's going to have a more defined core call range. So unfortunately, we don't get to get 500 plus big blinds deep. But we ran pretty well in the session, so cannot complain about losing that stack with 65% equity. With the nines here, I make an argument to bet. I mean, we do have a queen, so block some of the hands we can fold out. But this guy's gonna have to play like pretty straightforward with his stack size, to be honest. So I don't mind a 1/3 and then just obviously folding to a raise. Like, I don't really ever think we're getting bluff raise at this stack depth by 8x. So we can just get like 4 random overcards to fold and you know, some hands that are better than us in terms of pocket pairs as well. I appreciate you appreciating the content, LPD. I'm glad that I can put some more out there now that I have a little bit of time. Hopefully over the next week we'll get a decent amount out. Probably playing live tomorrow, so not tomorrow, but probably Sunday. I mean, 2,600 hands. Probably not calling this anywhere, but against that type of range, I think we can fold. I think given that it's ace high, I mean, we obviously have the anti-blockers with our hearts and diamonds, and this will be a good board for imposition. It's going to be yeah, that's going to be kind of calling a lot of double suited type hands, but hard to continue without a flush there, when it's, especially when it's an ace high board. So I think that we get more folds than we should, and obviously that time it doesn't work out, but I think it is a profitable bet in the long run. What is up, Boris? This is my day job. This is what I do for a living. Obviously not at PLO 100, but pretty deep and have some kind of nut outs and blockers to barrel on blanks, so I do like betting here. You should be finding less bluff raises out of position this deep. I mean, we're running pretty hot. I still think we want to use a large sizing on this turn, especially deep. It is a dynamic turn. With hearts and a pair, like, you can go smaller, I guess, but you don't often want to determine your bet sizing based on your specific hand. You want to do it also on your range, and we'll have a ton of like wraps that we bet on the flop there, and you know, we want to play very polarized in position, and you'll probably see maybe, you know, the solver prefers 75% or something there, but I quite like using pot sizing in those situations because it forces you to play more polarized. You can often kind of have a little bit too of a mergy hand there when you go for that 75% sizing, And using pot just kind of forces you to play kind of like your best blockers and your best value hands, rather than like, you know, like 2-pair and a gut shot or something like that. So I think we are actually going to be wrapping up. Probably going to be some shorter sessions. Maybe we'll be back on tonight and stream a bit. Top pair here. Weak top pair. Could go either way. And have to kind of call on the right. And too much showdown value on the left to not check back. Flop top 2 with an effective SPR of like 6. And I don't think that we get to value bet here. I think this King X is just too weak. With the dry board and the 8 in my hand, you know, I don't mind checking. We're okay on most turns. And then obviously going for the check raise with 3-pair. On the blank turn though, I will use a pot size bet. Marginal call on the left here, but with this guy in the pot and some net equity, I don't mind it. And we take down a nice pot. River 2-pair. Just really want to get this to showdown, to be honest. The best way to do that, I guess, is check. We often have the best hand. Sick beat, sick beat. Alright, so that is going to be it from me. As I said, might be back on later tonight. Heading to play live tomorrow. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But otherwise, thank you for tuning in and good luck at the tables out there.